Hey, and welcome back to the number one podcast in the world. How much vibrato can I put on that? In the world. The Cellarcast, episode 194. I've had a pretty low-key week so far. I've mostly just been working on stuff, actually stuff that I have been, not even video related. I've been getting ready for my next weekend, which I don't know if this is too late of notice to make an announcement about, but I don't know. You guys are you you guys get a last minute info. I'm going to be attending a little convention I've gone to. I've talked about it before on the podcast. A little convention in San Jose, California, called YumeCon, and I am actually going to be presenting a panel there. It is just a panel version of an old video of mine you might remember, called Who Owns Tetris? It's about the story of the rights ownership to the game of Tetris. So I've been working to convert that into a presentation. And I'm really excited, mainly because I love public speaking. And that's something that a lot of people... This weird thing happens every time I tell that to someone, is that they say, like, that I'm crazy for that. And I don't know. Like, whenever you see the people's lists of their biggest fears, number 2 is always death, and number 1 is public speaking. And I find that really interesting. That we're, like, more afraid of, I guess, embarrassing ourselves rather than dying. Like, that's worse. And I think that's kind of interesting. Actually, maybe the enlightened reading of that is that people aren't actually afraid of death. They're afraid of something else. And death is just a really extreme version of whatever their fear is. So more people are like, yeah, actually, they're like, death cannot stand in for public speaking, and that's the problem with it. There is no, I guess it's maybe like hell. Oh my god, do you think that some people's version of hell is like they die, they go to hell, and they're just embarrassed the whole time? At what point does something stop feeling embarrassing? How many times do you have to embarrass yourself in the same way before you don't care anymore? And the thing is I don't think most people have really stress tested that, because they don't even want to risk it one time. But I really love public speaking. I find it a lot of fun. I love presenting stuff. I love talking to people. I love talking to groups. It really invigorates me. And I've been having a lot of fun, honestly, just practicing and kind of getting the flow of the panel down. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of surprising that you can just email a convention and be like, hey, can I be on this? Can I do a panel? And they're like, yeah, sure. You could probably right now, I bet a lot of people listening to this right now could probably email some random local convention and get a panel approved. I don't know what you'd have to do to get it disapproved. Maybe have it be something totally crazy. Like, I don't know, shooting someone on stage. But if you just have something you want to talk about in front of people, you could probably get it done. The thing is, there's not that many people who want to give presentations. There's not that many people who want to talk about stuff in front of people. I actually had a harder time adjusting to making YouTube videos where I just talk to a camera than I would have. I was already pretty experienced. I'd done a lot of public speaking things before I started YouTube. And it was actually an adjustment. It was awkward for me to act like I'm presenting something, but to no one. I have to kind of like fill in. And I feel like sometimes the risk is that I just kind of end up like dully reading off of a script as opposed to having any kind of life, any vivacity to my delivery, which I think comes out really naturally when I'm talking to a group of people. So I have to like imagine some crowd, or kind of, I have to like simulate like I'm talking to someone. That's actually also one of the ways that I've tried to be a lot less sheepish. If you remember, I'm talking about when I talk about my book that I wrote to people. If you recall, earlier this year I finished a book that's taken me fucking forever to write, a novel, and I have to, I gotta get on like getting feedback or something like that about it, but it just kind of stalled at the first draft phase. But it's like the first draft is done. It's like a complete book, and people will ask me about it and like, whoa, what's it about? And I get so embarrassed. Trying to tell people about what my book is about. Because, I don't know, it feels like really personal in a weird way. Like, it's something that I would love to have published and be read by people. But, like, explaining it to someone, and especially someone, like, I know, is like, mortifying to me for some reason. So the solution that I've come up with is, instead of like, well, it's about this, I try to imagine, what if I hadn't written the book? What if it's not my book, and instead it's just a book that I've read, and now I'm explaining it to someone else, like the same way that I would explain anything else that I consumed, and someone would be like, oh, what's that book about? And then I could start explaining it from more of an impartial third person standpoint that I can what do I say? I can, yeah, that's where I start explaining it from. That makes me feel like a lot less embarrassed, like a totally different mindset about talking about it. I don't know what, if anything else, that kind of shift in perspective could apply to, but it certainly helps me like try to not sell people, although maybe I would have to at some point in the future. Honestly, I'd probably have to, but like, just, I don't know, pitch it to them to explain what it's about. I haven't really gone into too much detail about what it is, just because, I don't know, I feel like I just shouldn't. You're gonna steal my ideas. Yeah, I don't know. At some point, maybe like next year, maybe that'll be my New Year's resolution, is to get going on like whether or not I can get published or something like that. That could be cool. We had a couple questions last time. Actually, we had a lot of comments. And a number of questions. Actually, only one person who actually wrote in an honest to God question, and I have just lost it. Jesus, that episode got a lot of views. I guess it was a catchy title. All right, where was it? Right, it was from Ziggy995. So a number of people, I was a little surprised, but a number of people of the Tom Zito defenders came out to run defense for Mr. Zito. And I have to respect it, because I was a little bit mean to him last time. Tom Zito, the head of Digital Pictures, probably best known for, at least in gaming, for making all of those shitty, schlocky FMV games that basically tarnish the reputation of the technology immediately. Like stuff people point to and they go, look at this garbage, that's FMV. But he has a career outside of that, which I believe I touched on in the Make My Video. So Ziggy writes, fun fact, Tom Zito, head of Digital Pictures, is actually a decent photographer. They then tried to link a picture of Martin Sheen that did not work. Because YouTube likes to block external links in comments, which is probably a good idea. And, it's like Zito has actually done a lot of photography of celebrities and stuff. Also a lot of, like, nude or semi-nude photography, which was just kind of like a weird thing to stumble on after playing Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch Make My Video. Question. So my question is, if Zito heard this podcast describing his childlike grasp of games and emailed you apologizing, and in the interest of offering an olive branch, offered you an original photo from his collection and his friendship, would you accept? And which of the photos on his site would you choose? And they said, I've read the interview you reference. I can't recall where now. Fusion Magazine, circa 1995. It's maddening. I never made a note of it. It's probably in the sources on the Make My Video. I try to be pretty good about citing my sources. I would hope that I included the magazine that I cited the interview from, or at least like linked the archive.org page for it. Anyway, so would I accept a photo, his friendship? And if so, which photo? Well, number one, of course I'd love to be, well, I think we should get to know each other. My Snap thing was well, I'd love to have a new friend, you know. I think having friends is cool. But I don't know, like maybe he's a total jerk and I don't like him at all in person. So let's start off as acquaintance. Let's be friendly acquaintances. That's how we can go from there. And second of all, would I accept a photo? Yeah, sure, I guess. as a gift. So I went through his website, Zito.com, and looked at, he's got quite a bit of photography, but one that really stuck out to me, which is like pretty early in the, at least like on like the homepage. There's two that stick out to me, and I'm not sure which one I would rather pick. This one is called Larkspur, California, 1997. And it depicts, it looks like a grainy sepia. Wait, hang on. Wait. No, I do get what this is. Hang on, I don't want this one anymore. Wait, he just took a photo of like he's in a movie theater or something. He's watching, what is this? This is like an old black and white flying saucer movie. I was like, what the hell? Where did you capture this, man? What is this like flying saucer with an explosion behind it? On the steps of like some town city hall. It's what the image depicts, and it's kind of blurry, and it's a very evocative still. I'll give him that. But I was like, where did you get this? He's just watching a movie. Just took a snapshot of the movie. I guess he was watching, I don't know, Attack of the Flying Saucers in 1997 in Larkspur, California. The other one, Venice, California, 2003. Neither of these have any more details attached to them. All I have to go off for the image and I guess the date and time. It's a photo of like a van, and it's got one of those, like, how do I describe it? It's like a schizo van. So it's got all the writing on the side, and it says, Jesus spoke to me and told me that Val Kilmer is my son's dad. Please help me find Val. Dawn Christian, I'm the bride of the lamb. I just thought that was awesome. Anytime I see one of those in the wild, I go crazy. I'm so excited. It's not every day that you run into something really unique like that. And I like that this is an old photograph. It's taken the year that my brother was born, so that's cool. And I find it very charming, I suppose. I hope the person who owns this van is doing well now. Oh, you know what I saw the other? I saw a straight up, no joke, fake taxi. I legitimately saw a fake taxi in the wild. I was out with my dad. I think if I was with anyone else, I would have popped off. But I was out with my dad. I saw it drive by. It didn't look like a regular taxi. It was like I think it was like the same, what is it? The same like model? Something like that? Like the same chassis or whatever. Like someone had bought a taxi cab. But it was painted, I think, black, and it had a decal on the side. Like all the windows were blacked out. and it had a decal on the side of, I forget what it said, but it was clearly like a fake taxi type thing. And I was like, what? They make those? They really make those. So yeah, that's the photo that I would accept from Tom Zito, the van one. Venice, California, 2003. So there's some news that I completely missed from last week that's like a little notable. I recorded the entire podcast for like 2.5 hours 2 weeks ago, whenever I did the last episode. And then I finished, I hit done, I started exporting it out of Premiere, and I realized, wait, oh my god, I forgot to talk about Halo. So you guys, you don't come here for the cutting edge news. You come here for striking while the iron is ice cold. Although I think it's like a lukewarm at this point. It's not ice cold. Like later I'm going to be talking about Chainsaw Man, the very topical anime Chainsaw Man. Anyway, so it's like over, right? It's like it's completely Halo-over. We can all agree that, right? On when did this get announced? I have a more recent article. Halo PS5. When did that get announced? 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks ago, on October 24th, there was a PlayStation. Wait, what was this in? What was this? It was like some kind of event. And they announced Halo Campaign Evolved. Yet another remake of Halo 1. We're gonna... Remember Halo 1? We're gonna get it right this time, guys. You like Halo 1? Remember Halo 1? Remember when you were 15 playing Halo 1? You're like an old man now. You can play Halo 1 again. It's Campaign Evolved. I'm split on whether that's a great title or a really stupid title. But the biggest part of this was like, okay, who the fuck cares? Halo 1 is getting remade again. The biggest thing is that it's launching on the Xbox, probably PC, and PS5. And, okay, so when we go to like the history books, this is the moment that we're going to definitively say Xbox as a brand is over. Like it's over. It's. I'm not being hyperbolic. I'm not being salty or anything. Genuinely, like you have to understand. If this isn't clear to you, Master Chief is Xbox's brand. He's their mascot, and that carries a lot of weight. Okay. The brand is the last thing that they let go of. Warner Brothers right now is like dead in a fucking ditch, and you would have to fucking like do an armed terrorist takeover of their headquarters to let them give Bugs Bunny, like let Bugs Bunny walk around at Disneyland. It's the last thing that they let go of, because that's like cultural power. That's like the essence of soft power. So the fact that Master Chief is going to be on a PlayStation is like they don't care anymore. The Xbox division is done competing in the console business. They might have consoles in the future, but it's going to be like a little fun thing. The same way that, like, I don't know. I can't even think of like a similar product. It's like a side project. Like, oh yeah, you can also get like a mini gaming PC as an Xbox, or like it's called an Xbox or something like that. But as a console with a distinct identity that's trying to win or compete, it's over. It's completely over. Some projects will come out. there might be a next series Xbox, but this is genuinely like that. It's the last gasps. They just got to get projects out that have been in development for the last few years. They're basically, if anything, just a services company at this point, and their service, Game Pass, is not doing too well. Yeah, it turns out that the business model, I feel like a year or 2 years ago, I was like, yeah, man, that's a pretty good deal. I wonder if one day they're just gonna totally fuck it up. Or, like, it's gonna get way worse. Like, enjoy it while it lasts. Yeah, turns out that the too good to be true thing was totally too good to be true. It was way too good to be true. Game Pass is an unsustainable business model. It was great as a loss leader, but it just cannot churn out the profits that they required. Xbox as a brand, again, to reiterate, Xbox as a brand, as a division at Microsoft, has never been profitable once. They've never been profitable for a single quarter of a single year, ever. They have always been a loss leader because it's nice to have a console get business, and it was cheap. Honestly, that's the other thing, is that it was cheap. Very cheap to maintain. I find the situation real interesting because there was a post on let's see, where was it? Oh, it's like recent. It was like from the last few days or something. I saw it on r/gaming, or sorry, games, not gaming. Don't go to gaming. Let me just look up Valve Monopoly. 72% of, let's see, 72% of game devs see Steam as a monopoly. Now, I find this to be a really interesting statement and feedback as to like how people perceive things, because I think that there's a very close comparison to be made here. Steam as a storefront has never they've never acted aggressively towards any other members of the business. Like, they've never fucked with GOG. They've never fucked with Epic. GOG nor Steam has ever tried to make like an exclusivity deal with anything that wasn't like, obviously Valve games are going to only be on Steam. Fine, you got to give them that. TF2 is only on Steam. But like, they've never tried to buy anyone out. They've never done any like shady, underhanded practices. They've never done any shit like that. They've just been the best one. They've just been Luigi wins by doing absolutely nothing. That's not true. Valve actually does invest a decent amount of their revenue into new features and stuff for Steam. Everyone gives Valve shit about this and that, and they definitely do deserve shit, and they are a company that is first and foremost concerned with making money. But with that being true, they're also fairly consumer friendly. Like, they don't really fuck people over. Like, okay, So when they introduced the refund policy, that was because that had to be enforced in Australia. And like, okay, there had to be like an issue, or was there a lawsuit? I don't remember what it was. Or Australia passed a law or something like that. And it was like, okay, well, it would be a huge pain in the ass and look really bad if Australia was the only, Australian Steam users were the only one who got the refund policy. So it's just a global policy now. And you're like, okay, yeah, that's the reasoning. But like, they still did it. They've never tried to like undermine that shit. And like, GOG is around. They're a viable platform. I check out GOG. I play games on GOG. I don't use Epic. Steam has the majority of the market share because they're just like, they got the first mover advantage. They have a good service. They got a lot of games. It's good for what you get. It's just like, I don't know. I don't know what else I would be telling people to use besides GOG, because GOG's also got cool stuff. Their library is a little, I guess GOG's library appeals a little more to me, or it has like a specific, oh yeah, it is cool that they have like regular sales on like old retro games and stuff like that. And the DRM free thing, and that, like, yeah, there's like decent reasons to choose one or the other. And you honestly, you could just use both. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. PlayStation is like the same thing. There is this whole like, you know, competition in the market produces the best result. And it's like, sometimes, like, no, that's actually not true. In a lot of cases, like, sometimes, yeah, I guess. But if you look at the console industry, it's actually a really interesting case of competition, like, setting itself to zero. Like, competition nullifying itself. Like, Sony there was a couple years where the big three we have today were all competing with each other. Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. And then at some point, Nintendo really, like, they had two bad consoles in a row with the N64 and the GameCube. Bad in terms of sales, I mean. And they decided to pivot entirely to a different type of market with the Wii. And they were basically out. They said, fuck, we're just going to do our own thing. And they had the cultural cachet, the cultural capital to do that. Because they have Mario, and they have Zelda, and they have Pokemon. And you're never going to get... And there's people who will buy a whole console just to play those games. And as long as they just, you know, shape things up of how they're doing this and that, maybe make the technology a little... Honestly, the Wii was a really weak console for its day. It just had a good gimmick. It had a gimmick that appealed to a lot of people. Also, the DS was very successful. And Nintendo basically bowed out of, like, yeah, they are in the console business, but they don't really make an effort to compete. They technically compete just by being there, but they don't really, like... They aren't like, how can we beat PlayStation this year? Like, they don't really do that. In fact, there's an old interview with Reggie back when he was still president of Nintendo of America, where he basically says as much. He says PlayStation and Xbox can go fight over, I think he says they can go fight over in their red ocean, but Nintendo's going to do our own thing. And like, yeah, that just kind of works for them. So now the market actually gets like a little tighter, and there's really only two guys competing. Xbox and PlayStation. And, you know, for that one generation, that was a real decision. Like, damn, the 360s, it's, like, cheaper. It's got so many great games. It's got a lot of great exclusives. Oh, it's got the online. It's got free Xbox Live. But then put down PlayStation 3. It's been a few years. You know, the price is dropping. They're getting some cool games. Wow, those games look really good. That's a powerful console. And there were reasons to buy one or the other, right? Oh, PlayStation. Oh, they got like the Japanese exclusives. They're going to get a lot of the fighting games. And then the Xbox One came out and Microsoft just fucking killed itself. It's like, and sometimes that happens. The problem with everything collating and congealing in a market is that sometimes one member of the market just fucking kills themselves for no reason. Because they were bored. They just snapped their neck. You're like, why did you do that, Don Matrick? And he's like, fuck, man, I'm bored. And they have never lost the lead. Sony just made, they barely competed the entire PS4 generation. They were fairly aggressive about getting exclusives and pushing their lead. But they weren't like... It was real. They had a big head start, man. A lot of people moved from Xbox to PlayStation. Dude, oh my God. You know what saved me that gen? Because this was before I could, for the longest time I was a console gamer. My PC at home when I was a kid really wasn't strong enough to handle a lot of games. And a lot of times games were just buggy, and PC gaming was a pain in the ass for a really long time. So I was a console gamer. My first console was a Wii, I think we got that in like 2009 or something like that, 2010. And then a few years later, my brother was like, I want an Xbox. And we went to GameStop, and on, I don't know, his birthday or something, I don't know when. And we bought an Xbox 360. And it came, we got home, and this was still when the online services for both of them, for Xbox and PlayStation, were still free. But that was the standard, and then Microsoft was like, nah, you gotta pay for Xbox Live. And we got home, and like what he really wanted to do was play like an NBA, one of his NBA 2K whatever games online. And we got home, and it was like, oh, it's an extra subscription. And we were on a bit of a budget. I mean, growing up, we didn't have the most money. And that was like kind of crushing. And it was like, fuck, like my mom really does not want to pay that extra subscription for the game. So we went back and we returned it and exchanged it for a PS3. At which time the PlayStation, PSN was still free. And that saved us. That totally saved our asses. Because when the next gen hit, the logical next step was to go to a PS4. And we never had any problem. I'm imagining a world where we had to go we felt some kind of like brand where my brother was like, no, we got to stick with Xbox. And then we had to deal with the Xbox One's weak library as opposed to the PS4, which had fucking everything on it. So PlayStation's in like a weird situation where like they really have no more foes to conquer. This is, I think, why they've been expanding into the PC market. I think I've talked about this before. Like, does PlayStation have a monopoly on the console market? Actually, like, no, way less than you could argue Steam does. Which I don't think Steam really has a monopoly. It just has a massive market share. If Steam tried to buy GOG, that would be a different story. But they've never tried to do anything like that. PlayStation has, like, they have reached market saturation. They've reached anyone who is going to buy a PlayStation 4, and most people who would have bought a PlayStation 5 already have them. And at this point, like, who else did they sell to? I guess we just sell more games? Alright, well, what are our biggest sellers? It's all of our big AAA, everything from like a Naughty Dog or Santa Monica or all those. Well, I mean, the reason they sell so well is because a large percentage of people who own the consoles bought those games. Like, they buy the console. Like, those are your system sellers. Well, okay, well, how do we sell more copies? Let's just put it on a new platform. We don't want to put it on Xbox because fuck them. And honestly, they with full certainty in my heart, PlayStation expands to more people on PC than they would on Xbox. I think that's obvious at this point. And I don't know, this is probably successful for them. It's a decent business model. It's relatively consumer friendly to put stuff on more platforms. Personally, I'm a patient guy. I'm a #patient gamer. So I think that if it was me in the market for them, I wouldn't care that much that it's like there's like a 1-year lag. You know, it's like a 1-year exclusive to PlayStation before it goes on Steam or something. I think most people are okay with that. Honestly, that might actually be better in some cases, because by the time you get the game, it's got like all the patches and bug fixes, and maybe even comes with DLC and shit. Oh, that would be so tight. That would be so tight if they did that. just include like the deluxe or the Game of the Year edition whatever they call it, with all the extras and bonus doodads in the PC release. That would be cool. That would be cool. Oh, release them alongside each other. So the same time so the console and PC both get Game of the Year edition, or whatever they call it, Ultimate Edition, with all the pack-ins included. So then the first PC owners just get it, and then if you own the original on console, then you just do a little upgrade. You just buy it. The DLC for maybe a reduced cost. I don't know. Anyway, what was I talking about? Oh yeah. So this is like a weird situation. And I can only imagine that this is like kind of bad, because competition does kind of keep companies in check. Like, they do have to, unless they're literally in a monopoly or a trust where they're all conspiring together, like, you know, like ISPs to just divide the country into different territories, like feudal kingdoms, where they can screw over the people in their region more than the other ones. Unless they're doing that, they could just kind of like being in competition does force you to be a little bit consumer friendly. But when you have none, you can just do whatever. And it's funny because competition is what is the environment that caused this to happen in the first place. So I think that this is probably like a bad thing in the long term. Like, I can only see someone at the PlayStation C-suite being like, oh, well, fuck it. Well, now we just... Because the problem with infinite growth is that it's actually not real, and you can't grow infinitely. So once you've won every single person over, what do you just have to mine them for more and more and more money. And that's no good. The degeneration, the degeneration of the market of capital. That's literally just like what late stage capitalism is. So, Halo Campaign Evolved coming to PS5, I think marks the beginning of a dark era for the console industry. Where things will, there's going to be some kind of, I imagine some kind of crash in like 10 years, 15 years, something like that. That's my prediction. Bookmark this, and then 15 years in the future, let me know, 10 to 15 years, that's what I'm calling it. There'll be some kind of console crash because they got bored and had to kill themselves for no reason. Hey, speaking of fun industry news, did you hear about those Rockstar layoffs? So, Rockstar laid off like 30 to 40 people, and you're like, damn, I mean, I know that the GTA teams are pretty big, but that's still quite a few people. That's still a decent wave of layoffs. Now, they claimed that it was because of leaks in private Discord chats. And you go, okay, that sounds weird. Is that true? Well, this is all allegation. But there is a little bit. Where did this go? Go to the post. There we go. Okay, that was weird. I don't know why the post minimized. There's a story to suggest the contrary, that maybe Rockstar isn't being completely upfront with their actions. So this is on the GTA forums. Someone by the username of Organize, who joined basically to make this post, claiming to be a Rockstar employee of many years. This was privately confirmed by a trusted community member. So at the very least, there's a good likelihood that this is coming from an actual person who works or worked at Rockstar. And again, a lot of this isn't confirmed, but it's also not very surprising. So, essentially, what they say is that the layoffs were not triggered by leaks for the game, but as an attempt at union busting. There is a union at Rockstar, and I can imagine that the owners aren't happy about it. So it's a fairly long post. I'll try to summarize a bit and pick out some key passages. Essentially, they say that last week, my colleagues who were in the studio were each individually messaged by HR for a short, friendly meeting, under the friendly guise of, hey, are you free for a quick chat? Upon attending this meeting, they were handed an envelope with a short letter stating that their employment had been terminated for gross misconduct regarding posts made in Discord. They failed to provide any evidence when asked, nor was any stated in the letter, and did not divulge any other information or reasoning. Quote, and no other reason. So, they weren't even told why. They just said, you said something in Discord. Gross misconduct. That's it. They refused their right to union representation in the disciplinary meeting, which is against UK employment law, and were frog marched out of the studio with the meeting lasting less than 5 minutes. So first of all, Rockstar has already broken UK, United Kingdom law. They get handed termination. They say, I want to be represented by the union. And they say, nope, get the fuck out of here. This all happens in 5 minutes. They go on to say that the people who were not in the studio on the day of got a phone call that lasted less than 2 minutes, telling them they were fired and that they would receive the same letter. They write, I am aware of one employee who had a panic attack at this moment, and HR hung up on them during this panic attack, not caring at all about their well-being. Human resources. I think human resources for people who look at humans as resources. Now, this is interesting because if their description of the layoffees is to be believed, these were not just like low-level employees at the company. They describe them as hard workers who have spent many, many years at Rockstar in critical roles, with colleagues who have been there for more than 18 years with no disciplinary action in that whole time. They are not easily replaced and will certainly affect us in making our project deadlines. This, I want to say, was posted before the actual, the big news that more people are probably fixating on. And before Rockstar even claimed that it had to do with leaks, I think. These are very senior artists, animators, and you know how much fucking dialogue and animation is involved in the GTA games. QA testers, designers, programmers, and producers, including leads. There are lead positions who got fired. Some of these members were off sick, recovering from surgery, or on paternity leave, fired without pay, losing their careers, and putting them into hardship in the lead up to Christmas, and even potentially losing their visas to work in the UK. They then go on to say, I never saw any discussion/leaking of Rockstar projects in the union Discord. The only ever discussion was around unionization efforts and the working conditions at Rockstar. The Discord wasn't public. It was a private Discord group that only contained Rockstar employees and the International Workers of Great Britain, I believe, IWGB, union officials. They then go on to basically say that this was out and out union busting, and that of those, every single person fired was a union member. And I think just to connect the dots here, people in lead positions who are members of the union. And predominantly, according to them, those who were on the union organizing committees of each of the UK studios. Just 1 week before, the union had reached about 200 members, taking us over the 10% threshold required to seek recognition and begin engaging in collective bargaining, allowing us to negotiate directly with management on the key issues that affect us. Worsening, inadequate pay, and inflexible working arrangements. they have fired over 34 of us now. There were over 250 of us in that union employee Discord group. There is the fear that if they get away with this, they'll have nothing stopping them from doing this again and again. So when you talk about union busting, the union already existed. The problem is the union cannot begin collective bargaining, as in like actually the workers who make all the work happen, being able to have a say in things in a collective way and having a structure for that is supported by the law. They can't do that until they have 10%, until they make up 10% of the company. So what's the solution? Just fire union members. Now, obviously, at least in America, there are laws against this, and I have to imagine that in the UK, there are also probably laws against this as well. This is hopefully not something that they will get off scot-free with. There is a link at the bottom. So I'm going to link the blog post, or the forum post, and there's a fundraiser. Excuse me. On actionnetwork.org to support them in their fight to get... Oh my god, I'm burping now. Basically the legal case against Rockstar for this. Because this is real... I mean, this is really awful behavior from an employer. And also literally hurts them. GTA 6, days after these layoffs happened, has been delayed from, I think it was like May of 26 to like December or November or September. It got delayed like a hefty amount. Gee, I wonder why. When you fire 34 lead positions, or just about, of like long-term institutional knowledge and talent in the lead up to the release of the biggest game of all time. So the other thing that this heavily implies, because they don't talk about the status of GTA 6. I mean, you know, they've been laid off. Or no, the person writing has not been laid off. But obviously that would be actually leaking details if you talked about the status of the project. But one of the strong implications here, because they said that one of the things that one of the goals for the union was to renegotiate on things to lessen the effects of what they called worsening crunch. So it already existed. There was already crunch going on, but it's getting worse in the lead up to the release of the game. Now, I did a quick Google search, and I found out, I don't know how many people know this, but Grand Theft Auto 5 came out in 2011? 2013. Sorry, 2013. It came out in 2013. Now that means that they've had a good 12 years to make GTA 6. Let's call it 11 or 10 years, you know? Let's call it 10. Let's say they all took let's say that they all took like a 2-year sabbatical to chill out. You know, they did GTA Online, which I'm sure, you know, incurs some... There's decent development costs for GTA Online. But they have a lot of people working there, right? Now, you have 10 years to make a game. Why? How do you crunch? How do you get a crunch environment? This is the kind of environment that, like, creates anti-crunch, where, like, you have so much time on your hands that you just start adding to shit. You just start adding shit with no no care and reckless abandon until the game gets way too big. This is how you end up with like a Silk Song situation where the devs just have way too much time on their hands and they just spend it all working on shit and making the game bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Or it's like a StarCraft Ghost situation where the lack of a deadline means that the game never comes out, which honestly might be the case here. At a certain point, I think that maybe a manager or a producer is just so bad at their job that they should just be they should be shot dead on the spot. You have 10 years to make a game and you somehow end up crunching on it in the last 6 months? And it's bad? It's like really bad crunch? What are you doing? What what the fuck is happening? It's so crazy to me because, like, I don't think that this really happens in the film industry. There's no, like, oh my god, you know, the crunch to get that film out was crazy. It's, like, pretty standardized. Oh my god, and you know why? It's because they actually have unions. It's because they've had unions for a really long time. So that's, like, abominable. And kind of ridiculous, honestly. And that's the thing that has been overshadowed by a lot of the news of the delay, because people just go, oh, GTA 6, oh no, it's getting delayed, oh, I'm gonna die. And I don't think most people are acknowledging that the reason for the delay is because of gross negligence and active hostility towards your workforce. Hey, why are you so worried about me getting rights? Hey, why are you so worried about me being able to vote for public officials? That's weird. Why are you worried about that person who is currently in power? That's so strange that you would want to take away a group of people's rights to affect an election. That's so weird that you would want to make it harder. If you're so good at your job, it's weird that you would want to make it harder for you to lose? That's just really strange. Anyway, that's bullshit, and fuck them. And links will be below for the Action Fund, the Action Network Fund. I'm going to talk about something fun now. Flesh and Blood, yeah, which is actually going through a great time. Fab is awesome right now. It's been a while since I've played a game where I feel like people are generally really happy with the spot that the game is in, both meta-wise and the cadence of releases and stuff. The cost of the game it's been a slow process. And because there's always like a 1-year lag between when a decision is made and when it hits store shelves. I mean, minimum 6 months. But I don't know, like the affordability of the game has gotten a lot better. There were some really good reprints in the last set that made a lot of decks much more affordable. There's still cards that I think are way too fucking expensive. There's still staples that are way too expensive. But I think that they've been making some real steps in the right direction. Also, I thought that the last set was a ton of fun. I think I mentioned it. Some of the more competitive players around me, I heard at least one person call it like a bad set. And I was like, that is the most like comp-brained... I get it's a competitive game, but that's the most comp-brained thing I've ever heard. Like, I'm actually totally fine if a new set comes out and doesn't power creep the fuck out of the format and like fuck up the game for a while just so that like you can go play it and win in tournaments. I'm sorry that there isn't like a clear best deck in format for the moment because the meta is actually fairly even with a couple small outliers. Well, not necessarily small, but like there's the gap in power level is nowhere close to what it was even like a year ago between the best decks and like the next tier or whatever. Like the game's doing pretty well, and on the affordability front, oh, and not even to say that the new heroes were bad or anything. Like I thought the set was really fun and had a lot of fun mechanics and fun heroes. with unique playstyles and gameplay concepts. It just felt like a fun set. And I was like, cool. I'm happy with that. And the affordability of the game has actually increased dramatically with the introduction of a new format called Silver Age. So Silver Age is like maybe one of the best things to happen to the game in a long time, because it's a culmination of the ongoing experiments to come up with a more accessible, like lower. It's like a lot of the coalescing of a lot of things have all come down to both like officially and fan made have all originated, all resulted in Sage, as it's being called, because SA isn't a great, it's not a great acronym in this day and age. Shout out to Games Workshop, who keep referring to command points as CP over and over and over again for like 30 years. 40 years. 40,000 years. So Fab's most dominant format for the longest time has been Classic Constructed, CC, which is now like, it's, I guess what you'd call the closest to the standard format. Heroes start at an average of 40 life. You have a 60 card main deck. You can have 3 copies per card. Have at it. When the game launched, there was an alternative format called Blitz. Blitz used young versions of heroes, which start with about half the life total of their adult versions, but for the most part are basically the same. So like half starting life, smaller deck sizes, and that was basically that was Blitz. And Blitz had like some problems, and it used to be, when the game was new, a really crucial way to get new players into it, because the game is kind of complicated and it hits you with a lot of info when you're first learning it. Like, it's kind of overwhelming how much, if you come from any other card game, the amount that you have to think on any given turn of Flesh and Blood immediately and how many options are available to you is kind of overwhelming. And so the fact that like a regular game of CC tends to take like 50 minutes, having something that was much faster, where you could crank out like 2 or 3 games in that same amount of time, depending on the matchup, was really helpful for the game. Also, the fact that decks were only 40 cards instead of 60, and we were limited to 2 copies per deck, meant that decks were just, you needed less cards, which is both that's like an access and affordability thing. I only need 2 copies of this card rather than 3, which means I don't have to buy 3 copies. Spending $50 on 2 cards, for a bit of an extreme example, feels a lot better than spending $75 for 3 copies. The problems with Blitz kind of became more apparent as time went on, however. Namely that the game is just not designed around it. The cards that come out are not designed around starting with 20 health. And the format is way more volatile. And honestly, I think in many ways it eventually evolved into kind of a bad first impression for new players, because the game is so much more volatile and explosive. It punishes mistakes a lot harder, and specifically mistakes on some really core, but also difficult to grasp concepts, like difficult to grasp at a basic level. Defense in Fab is something that's really difficult to get a handle on, especially when you're starting out. Like, attacking and doing your combos you can eventually get the hang of, but when to defend takes a lot more presence of mind, and understanding the game state. It usually takes more experience in a certain matchup. Knowing what's possible, what other heroes like to do. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you have to learn and get used to and start thinking about when you shift into defense. And in Blitz, I mean, again, like, there are a number of heroes who can easily deal, like, or at least threaten, like, 17 damage. 12 to 16 damage, maybe 17, in a single turn. And if you block some of that, but maybe there's certain choke points where, like, oh, I needed to block that instead of that. And not understanding where those choke points are is so punishing at 20 life. At 40 life, there's a lot more room. Like, the game's just going to go on longer. There's more room for one of you to brick your hand. There's more room for something to go wrong. Maybe someone takes a less optimal turn. You just have a little more time to kind of get into the swing of things and learn some of the patterns that the enemy plays. So Blitz has kind of fallen off in most people in my community, at least. I know there's some strong Blitz communities, but most people don't enjoy it too much. And we have, like, voted it out of the weekly the weekly event at least once. Like, no, we just want to play CC. There's another format which is intended to be the low power format, or at least I would say not the low power necessarily, but the low cost format called Commoner. There are 4 basically rarities of cards in Fab: Common, Rare, Majestic, and Legendary. Legendaries are almost exclusively for equipment pieces. And Commoner, as the name might imply, is composed of all commons, which are super cheap and abundant and not hard to get your hands on at all, which sounds great as a low-cost format. Unfortunately, I've played Commoner before, and it's not that fun. Again, there are Commoner defenders. The problem is that the average power level of a Commoner card is so low that it's like... It's like if you had to play Street Fighter, but only with, like, your light and medium buttons. And that's it. No specials or supers. No command normals. Just lights and mediums. Like, the really, really basic bread and butters of your character or your hero or your deck or whatever. And a lot of people just didn't like Commoner because it wasn't that fun. It was just kind of dry. It was also a young hero format. And it wasn't fun. Like, the one time that we ran Commoner at my store, I was playing Azalea, who's a ranger. And Rangers, specifically the Azalea deck, is all about, or my version of it, the build that I play, is about building up having an arrow and then buffing it and playing like 3 or 4 other cards to buff the power of the arrow, and then just fling a really strong arrow at them with a bunch of on-hit effects that get added on top by your different buff spells. And it's a lot of fun. I like shooting. She's a pile bunker character. Some of the best, like, bread and butter, like, pump spells, as they're called, the Lace series, Lace with so-and-so, like, debuff, they're all rares. Not broken by any means, not expensive, not hard to come by, just rares. So they're not playable in Commoner. And, like, man, when you can't play with, like, the Lace series or some of the other good rare pumps or arrows, it's like, woof. It feels really dry and low power. And for what reason? Like, why? If I could run rares, it wouldn't even be a problem. So they've had this kind of issue where these two formats have been sort of struggling. Also, as a beginner format, Blitz... Okay, like, Blitz has the Living Legend system, and I actually like the Living Legend system. The rotation system where heroes retire once they win a certain number of events, right? I think it's a cool system. But for a new player, it kind of sucks to be like, hey, so in like a fighting game, you're like, yeah, just pick whatever character immediately interests you. Like, who do you think looks cool or looks fun or has an interesting gimmick or something like that? Just pick whoever. And in Fab, you'd be like, yeah, just pick whoever. And then they'd be like, sure, how about this hero? And you're like, they're actually Living Legend. You You can't pick them. They're not legal in the regular format. They're not legal in Blitz. And they're like, okay, how about this? They're not legal either. They're also LL. And in order to find out the Living Legend leaderboards, because also, like, you maybe don't want to pick a hero that's really close to going to Living Legend, like really close, like in the 900s or something. Because depending on how fast they're gaining points, you're just like, okay, well, I might invest into them, and then in 2 months they could be gone. If they're gaining points really fast, that is. Which, again, doesn't happen very often, but it has in the past. I talked, like, way back when Aurora went to Living Legend in 6 fucking months. Or something, or no, what was it? Yeah, it was like genuinely 6 or 7 months, which is really, really fast. Because she was really good and really easy. She wasn't like the best deck, she was just really easy, so a lot of people got top placings with her and just farmed points for her. Whereas potentially the actual stronger hero, who was more difficult to play, topped a lot of events, like got number 1, but there were fewer representatives because it was just a more difficult deck. So you'd have to like send them to this website with a kind of clunky spreadsheet, the official website that's just like, it's just like a CSS table where they have the points and the leaderboard and stuff, and there isn't like a visual reference, it's just the hero's name. And it's just like it's just kind of clunky and annoying, and also requires you as a brand new player to sort of pay attention to the competitive meta and what's popular and what people are playing and what people are topping with and like how fast a hero is gaining points. And it's just like, it's fine once you're decently invested into the game, but for like a buy-in, it's kind of annoying and like a little much to ask. So all of this culminates in the new format, Silver Age, which is basically replacing Blitz and Commoner. Silver Age is basically like Commoner, but you can run rares. Now, there was another format that was fan-made called Clash that was very similar to this, but you could also run, in addition to, you could run commons, rares, and any specialization cards, which are cards that can only be run by a specific hero that it names. For Sage, they have decided not to include that, which I think is, I think it's actually probably a good idea, because a lot of the specs, like, genuinely, I was thinking about, and I was like, okay, if I'm going to play, like, Azalea, because she's been Living Legend for a while, a little bit in CC, and I want to play her again. If I'm going to play her in Sage, let me just imagine in my mind the Azalea deck. Now take out all the everything above rare, but then put the specializations back in regardless of rarity. That's almost the same deck. It's almost the same deck with a few other power cards taken out that I would just replace with something else that's decent. But still, like, the most fucked up brutal parts of, like, attacks and spells in that deck are like specs. So I do actually agree with just limiting it, not including the specs, right? So the other big thing, so number 1, including rares is a huge win, because rares add a lot of the flavor to various classes and talents. Rares are where you get the cards that are a little stronger. They've got a little more like, ooh, this is like a cool effect. But they're not like, oh, the big power card like you'd find in Majestics, where that can like totally warp the game once they're played. Like create a game warping amount of tempo or something like that. There's some fucked up Majestics, right? And when you can play, everyone can play with Majestics, it's not as bad. Rares just provide like a nice middle ground where it's just lower powered. And also, rares are not hard to find. They're fairly abundant. You can get, it's not difficult to invest in some rares. You probably have if you just open packs from going to your regular events, you probably got a decent collection of rares anyway. If you're pulling for classes that you play. And so this is it's a lower power and a lower cost format. I haven't seen a single Sage deck that's more than $10 total on TCG Player. So what you can do is you can go to Fabrary, which is like a community created website. It's a card database, and it's also a deck building database. That's great. It's also got like integration with some of the official apps. It's a great tool. It's a great resource. And you can build a deck in Fabrary, and they have a tab that shows you the cost of the deck, like a breakdown of every single card at its cheapest and most expensive printing. And there is a button that you can just click that says just order every single card on TCG Player, at least ones that are available, which most cards should have at least one listing. So assuming that you have literally no cards and you're starting from zero, you can get a completely functional, competitive Sage deck for $10. And most of that is honestly shipping. It's actually crazy how friendly of a format it is. And people have been going, like everyone I know has been going nuts about like, oh, I'm going to play this. I want to build this. Everyone has like 5 different decks that they want to build. And even me, like I'm super hyped to play Azalea again. I was playing her at a recent Armory night at my local store. And it was a lot of fun. It felt real good to be doing my Ranger combos once more. But there's other decks that I wanna check out. That's like, oh man, I've never played a Guardian. I think maybe an Assassin would be kind of fun to build. Maybe Fang. Fang's got cool cards. Fang's got that one really awesome looking card. I think it's a spec. Hang on. I want to look it up. It's such a cool... The artwork is so cool. The artwork is so cool. It's like for a super. Hang on. Yeah, it's called Fire and Brimstone. And it literally looks like that art alone makes me want to play the hero. It looks like he's doing a super move. And it's a rare. That's awesome. I don't even know if that's run in a lot of Fang decks. But there's just stuff that I've been thinking up, and like it's really easy to put these things together. Again, small deck sizes, like 40 cards, 2 copies per card. And yeah, it's like super accessible. It's really cheap. And there's a ton of fun rares that maybe don't get the chance to shine just because there's Majestics that do their job better. They also banned, it's got a pretty, I like the ban list so far. They basically took out a lot of the more omnipresent generic defensive cards that are more necessary in a format like CC, where the power level is higher. But in this one might be just a little too obnoxious. The one problem that the card pool has at the moment is that equipment is pretty limited. So I've been running into this problem building Azalea, where I have pretty decent choices for common and rare equipment slots until I get to the leg slot, and I realize that there is just not a single piece of Ranger equipment that is below Majestic rarity. They're all Majestics and Legendaries, which means that I have to go to the generic pool, and generic armor is like intentionally not very good. There's a few like legendary pieces that are decent, but in general, generic armor is meant for like draft. It's meant for like really low power, like we're expecting the decks to be kind of bad. And most of them are just not that great and not that applicable, or they were kind of designed for very specific draft environments and they weren't expecting you to be putting these in real decks. So everyone has been swarming around the best generic equipment set, which is called Blade Beckoners. There's one for each slot. And yeah, I guess I just run Blade Beckoners boots, or what is it? Greaves? I forget what it's called. Yeah, it blocks for 2 if you're defending a weapon. Otherwise, it blocks for 1. And then it explodes after it defends. That's the best you're going to get out of the generics. Apparently, the next set is going to have a substantial amount of support for Sage, and there's going to be a lot of stuff. I don't know. I don't think they said like printed specifically into Silver Age and not intended for like the wider game. But I kind of just assume that means they're going to print better generic equipment. or some more like some easier like staple pieces and stuff, or stuff for other classes. The other thing that I think makes it a great format is that it's an eternal format. There's no rotation, there's no living legend system, which means every hero from the game's whole history that has a young variant, because it's a young hero format, and not every hero has a young version, which is honestly good in a couple cases. Every hero is playable. Every young hero in the game is playable. Oh, actually not true. Because the vast majority of heroes, their young versions are commons. There's a few that are rares. Heroes actually do have rarity. It's usually not an issue. Like, it's not hard to get a hero card. But some of them are printed at higher rarities because you're just not meant to be playing. Like, they're meant for like really specific formats. They don't want you to get like flooded with them. They need to put young heroes at really low rarities for the most part, like anyone from a main set, because those are meant to be draft. And so you need to be, young heroes are used in draft. So there has to be an acceptable number of each. Like, if you open an entire box to do an 8-person draft, you should have more than enough heroes for everyone to be covered based on whoever they want to play. So that's why they're at such a low rarity, and they will appear in the token slot so often at the back of the pack. Or the front, whatever. That's the back. So some of them are printed at like majestic rarity for one reason or another. They're not legal. They are not legal. They might print legal rare versions of them. I don't know. But for the most part, basically everyone, the vast, vast majority of heroes from the game are playable in Sage and will be forever. And people are also really excited about that because it suddenly makes a bunch of cards that have been essentially out of the format for a while playable. So people are really excited about the 2 heroes I saw people the most jazzed about were Icelander, who is an ice wizard. She plays kind of like a tempo-y control strategy, where she gives the opponent these things called frost. If she plays an ice card on their turn at like instant speed, she gives you a frostbite. The opponent a frostbite, which makes your next thing cost 1 more for each frostbite you have. It's annoying and I hate it, but that's how she plays. Some people love doing that shit. Just slow the game down essentially, and then like swing with a little bit of arcane damage every turn. And then Dromai, who is a draconic illusionist. So she's got a really cool theme. Illusionists are the main summoner class of the game, one of the 2, the other being necromancers, of which there's only 1. And being a draconic illusionist, her whole deal is that she makes dragons out of ash. So she generates like these ash tokens, and then she has cards that summon dragons where she puts the card on top of the ash, and all of her dragons have different effects and they buff each other. And she just plays she's got the Dragon Zoo strategy. And then she rushes you down with a million little dragon attacks. And some of them give her utility options and stuff like that. Cool character. Cool hero. And of course, I was really excited to play Azalea. I was having a lot of fun doing my ranger combos, like I said. And honestly, like, most of the deck is pretty intact playstyle-wise, which is really nice. It feels like I'm playing the hero again. Everyone's really stoked about it. I think that we were talking about maybe having at least one of the stores that we go to have it doing Silver Age for just a whole month. Every week just doing Silver Age because people are that excited about it. I think it's going to be like a new, really popular format, and it's probably what I would recommend to new people getting into the game. In February, they're going to be releasing pre-cons. So there's going to be like 10... I think there's 10 decks total. They're going to do them in waves of 5 that are pre-constructed decks for Silver Age. They haven't revealed the deck lists. They have claimed that they are competitive. I think the tagline they were going with was the $20 ticket to the $1 million world tour, or $2 million. I forget how big the prize pool is. And so sometimes, pre-constructed decks, they can be a toss-up. There's some good ones, there's some bad ones, but in general, I think that anything for Sage is probably going to be... Anything you could throw together is probably decent. Unless it's like you are literally just stuffing complete useless garbage in there. They're probably going to be pretty good. So that's really cool. It's nice to be playing a game where everything's just kind of going well. Where everything's just kind of running smoothly. People are happy with the balance and the format of the game. Excuse me. There's a cool new game mode. And yeah. Fun times in Flesh and Blood. All right, now I want to talk about some stuff that I watched recently. Namely, a little show you might have heard of called Chainsaw Man. So this is... Kat and I spent like 2 days watching the anime. It's only like 12 episodes, so that's not too long. And I really enjoyed it. Have you ever noticed that if I do like a really long intro to something, that means that I don't like it? That I don't just want to like come out and say it? I don't know why I do that, but if I like something, I'll just say that I liked it immediately. I think I've always been like that. No, I really enjoyed Chainsaw Man. I didn't watch it not because I thought it looked bad, but just because it was... Honestly, I'm going to be completely transparent. It's because I am like kind of a contrarian when it comes to consuming things. Not my opinions on things, just consuming them. If something is really popular, it makes me way less motivated to watch it, or read it or play it or whatever, rather than if I had discovered it organically. But if I do actually watch the popular thing, it really doesn't have much of an effect on my enjoyment of it. Sometimes if I really hate something and it's popular and I'm just being swarmed with praise for it, it can exacerbate my feelings for it. But in general, I'm not like, that thing's popular. Yeah, it's bad. I'm not like an actual contrarian in my opinions. I don't think I am. I try not to be. I try to be honest as to like how it's hitting me. And Chainsaw Man hit pretty good. So this is a manga that I heard about for a really long time. It's running for a while. I think it's still going on. And the anime had a ton of hype behind it. I knew people loved it. And I also I've heard so much random shit about it. I've seen people cosplaying characters from it. But I really could never get a handle on what it's about. Partially because I never really bothered to check. And partially because a lot of it just seemed really... I saw a lot of out-of-context stuff that was like, okay. There's like a girl, she's got devil horns, and she sits down on a toilet at one point. There's a guy... Okay. So people would be like, Denji is such a cool character. He's so awesome, haha. He just wants to touch boobs. And now having watched the show, just the first season, we want to watch the movie, the Reze Arc movie, next, while it's still in theaters. Having watched the show, wow, that is like really selling Denji short as a character. And maybe people do that because they're talking to other fans of the show and like, haha, it's funny to describe it like that. But wow, he is like a way more interesting character than that gives him credit for. I got like a weird, I don't know, I've always gotten such a weird impression from people who like the show just because of the way that they talk about it. But I found that the story is actually replete with really interesting, kind of challenging writing and a lot of great thematic and like visual imagery. It has a really interesting setting. I really enjoy the dialogue and the way that the characters interact with each other. The rules of the world and what's really going on I'm really fascinated by it. I didn't have the feeling of like, oh, I love this, I super love this while watching it. I was actually just like, I'm really interested in this. I just want to see where it goes next. It wasn't like a hype thing. I was just like, wow, I wonder, I really want to know what happens next. What am I going to get in the next episode? And yeah, I was like on the edge of my seat for when he finally touched those tits. I guess this is going to be a spoiler for the first season of the anime. So you've been warned. I would recommend it. I think it's a genuinely really good show. If you find that your tastes align with mine, then maybe that's sign enough for you to go watch it. So Chainsaw Man takes place in well, at first it appears to be a contemporary setting in Tokyo, Japan. Later you kind of find out that this is a bit of an alt history thing. Like most things in the world are the same from what I can tell, but some things are different because of aspects of the setting that are clear. Like for the most part, history has gone a certain way, but there's little things like the Soviet Union is still around and little things like that. And I imagine over the course of the series, there'll be other little hints and stuff. And yeah, I can see maybe why history would be a little bit different, because this is a world with devils in it. Devils are a really cool concept. They're essentially a take on the traditional Japanese yokai. Yokai are kind of a catch-all term for a Japanese folklore spirits and things. Spirits and assorted otherworldly things, like supernatural things. And they encompass a lot of things like ghosts to weird phenomena to like gods or embodiments of things can be yokai. It's a bit of a catch-all. But one of the ways that something becomes a yokai, like for instance a river, or a river or a concept or something like that, is essentially that it just sticks around long enough. Once something, there's kind of an idea that it ties into its relationship to human beings, almost as if the longer that something is around and people are aware of it and know about it, there's almost like this passive, like psychic unconscious. And over time, that concept builds up until it manifests in the form of a yokai. A yokai of a river or this forest or this tree or something like that. This is also partially, I forget who was talking about this, but I read an interview one time with some Japanese game developer where he said that one of the reasons he thinks Japan pumps out so many things like Pokemon of just or so many properties that have like 1 billion characters, like themed characters, is that this concept that you could take any kind of concept or idea or thing or place and create some kind of a character that represents it is just really pervasive in Japanese culture and mythology. So devils in Chainsaw Man kind of exist it's a really similar idea, but they're specifically based off of fear. So if enough people are afraid of something, if the collective fear of a concept is great enough, it births some kind of like supernatural entity that represents that thing. The big one that they are hunting throughout the show, or that is like the long-term goal that they've at least established in the first season, is the gun devil. And it basically, they explain that as firearms and war became more prevalent throughout modern history, fear of guns became a more common thing. And gun deaths and gun violence. And then specifically, I believe they say in America, there was a terrorist incident that is totally not 9/11. But that is... Oh, I'm being propositioned for pizza right now. Hang on. Pizza secured. What was I talking about? There was a terrorist attack in America that's like... It's like a building with smoke coming out of it. But it wasn't 9/11. It wasn't like a plane crashed. Maybe that would make the plane devil or something. But it was an armed takeover of some kind. Firearms were involved, and this big global thing, this big attack, was the straw that broke the camel's back, and that created the gun devil. And the gun devil, which we haven't seen, at least it's not in the anime yet, in like 1 second shot some kind of projectile or just force, some kind of power, because they've all got crazy anime powers that represent the thing that they are, that like went, as I understand it, basically just like went around the entire world, like in a circumference, and killed 1.2 million people in an instant, just completely obliterated. Obviously, that increased the fear of guns. And so this is like enemy numero uno for the various devil hunting agencies around the world. Of course, this main one is the Tokyo branch of Japan's public devil safety, whatever. They are the ones who they're apparently private devil hunters who, because they're private, have the option to turn down contracts or jobs. But the public division, they got to take anything, which means that they have a very high mortality rate and it's rough. Like, most people don't last a year or something. They're like the guardsmen in 40K. But that's getting a little bit ahead. That's like the basic setup of the world. The main character is this guy named Denji, who is a teenager. He's like 16 years old. And Denji is basically fucked. He was born fucked, which I thought was really cool for an anime protagonist to not be like a normal guy. I think it's kind of cool to watch a show that's an anime about someone who's 16 and he's not like a normal, relatable guy who's just like you. He's totally screwed over from birth. His mother dies at a young age of a heart condition that they strongly suggest in the first episode that he also inherited. And that is probably going to come for him fairly young. That he is definitely not going to be able to pay for treatment for, because his father got into a bunch of debt with the Yakuza and then hanged himself when he couldn't pay it off. And all of the debt was transferred over to Denji, who was basically forced to scrounge and scrap and struggle to pay off his father's debt at the age of like 11. So Denji is fucked. Like, Denji is a guy who never had a chance and would have completely slipped through the cracks. No one's coming to save him. No one's coming to help. And he does not have the agency in his own life as a child, who's just like the victim of the world and his parents and his situation. He gets fucked, right? Except the one little miracle that happens in his life is on the same day that he's saddled with this debt, he meets a little itty bitty chainsaw dog named Pochita, or that he names Pochita. Pochita is he's the chainsaw devil, but he's a cute little guy, and he's got a chainsaw. He's like a funny little dog, but he's got a chainsaw on his head. And Denji basically uses Pochita to do odd jobs, like they do logging jobs and stuff like that. But mainly, the stuff that pays the best is devil hunting. So you have like a middle schooler putting himself at risk to pay off debt to the Yakuza. Like, nothing about this is fun or cool. And Denji basically scrapes by with all the money that he makes, almost all the money he makes, going towards paying off his debt, a few bills, a little bit of food, other stuff that he owes, and he enjoys, in quotes, a very meager existence, basically living day to day. The first episode is him getting betrayed by the dude who he owes the debt to, who has made a pact with the zombie devil. And Denji is basically, he doesn't, again, no fucking chance. He's betrayed. He's left for dead. But at the last moment, as he's been tossed into a dumpster, his dead body's been tossed into a dumpster, Pochita makes a deal with him, which I think is actually really interesting. There's this whole concept. One of the big themes of the show is transactional relationships and what people are willing to do to get what they want and why. And there's tons of, like, the most literal example of it is with the devils, which has there's a thematic level to it. There's a literal level to it. When the zombie devil comes out and he's got these hordes of zombies that he's controlling, he goes on like a very on the nose monologue about how all these people want power and they get it, but it turns them into shambling, mindless zombies. What's interesting is that Pochita and Denji were partners for years at that point, but there was never an actual like demonic pact between them. It was entirely goodwill from one to the other. It was just caring about each other that would give was what they exchanged. But Pochita basically makes a devil pact, which has actual supernatural implications with Denji. That as he is dying, Pochita is going to fuse into Denji's body and replace his heart and turn him into like a fused devil-human hybrid thing, which gives him chainsaw powers that lets him fucking shoot chainsaws out of his arms and his face and shit. Denji gets picked up by one of a public devil hunter named Makima, and when I say that people sell Denji short, I think what like by just saying he's just a guy who wants to touch boobs. What Denji really wants that he doesn't really understand is a human connection. He wants a human connection that's fulfilling, and he wants like love. He understands what love is in a very childish, simple way, because everyone who loved him died when he was a kid. And the one thing that he's had, the only other thing that he really had was Pochita, which is like a pet relationship, right? So as far as other human beings go, everyone that he interacts with is like wants something from him. And Denji, so when he yearns, I hate that the word yearning has been corrupted by Twitter. I feel cringe saying it, but I'll say it anyway. When he yearns for a human connection, it manifests in the most like I guess like surface level dumb way. Is he gets like, I want a girlfriend. I want to kiss and make out with a girlfriend and touch her boobies. Wouldn't that be so awesome? Because he's like 16 years old and he lives in a shack. And over the course of the show, what I really like about his character is that he actually gets a lot of the things that he wants, but they are not what he thought they would be. And I think that's really cool to do to a character. A lot of, because this is a shonen. Yeah, it's a shonen. A lot of shonen manga have the character set out with some kind of end goal. And every hardship that they encounter on the way is just like, there are mini goals that they then reach on the ladder up to the top goal, to the top of the ladder. And Denji has a really different kind of arc, at least in the first season, where he gets the things that he wants, but they are not nearly as satisfying as he thought they would be. And he has to like figure that out. He has to learn lessons largely on his own. Because again, no one around him, even when he gets inducted into the public sector of the Devil Hunters, no one around him really cares for his well-being, outside of just like keeping him alive for survival reasons because he's an asset to their team. So Makima appears and finds him in this warehouse. And he is still like on the verge of death because using the chainsaws consumes like a fair amount of his blood. He has to give up his blood to use them. Maybe because Pochita's like his heart now, literally and figuratively. And Makima is like an angel. Makima is literally, it's like mercy coming down from heaven gif, where she is like, I am going to give you affection. I'm going to give you food. It's such an interesting scene when they take a rest stop on the way back to Tokyo. And Denji is like, oh, I don't know. I don't need anything. And she's like, I'll just buy it for you. And it's not even like expensive food. He's just like, he is not used to people giving him the things. He's not used to accepting things. So she buys him food. And he's like, this is fucking crazy. He's not like even resistant to it once it happens. He's just like, wait, what? He's just not used to it. But he thinks it's awesome when it does happen. I really enjoy how simple his reactions are and how much of like a normal guy he is. Denji has really normal priorities, which kind of puts him at odds with some of the other characters who have much more like deep involved backstories and goals and stuff. Denji has really simple goals, but they tell you a lot about his character. So he's now in a position where Makima's like wants to recruit him for this like special division of the Devil Hunters. And he's like, hey lady, as long as you let me like put my head in your lap and you like buy me food and stuff and give me like a place to sleep, I will do fucking anything you say. She like has him bark like a dog for her. Makima's definitely like a bad person. I can tell that immediately. She does not act in good faith at all. She comes off as extremely manipulative, but in a way that Denji is almost like willfully ignorant to. Like, she probably has a lot in common with the Yakuza guy that he was indebted to. She's just nice to him instead. She just uses like love and affection instead of like threats of murder. Although she does eventually, she say that like, well, down the line, like if you don't do your job right, we will have to kill you because we can't just have you walking around as like a human devil hybrid thing. And he's like, that's fine. That's cool. I don't care. I like how dysfunctional a lot of the characters are in their relationships. He immediately gets assigned to hang out or basically like work under this more established devil hunter named Aki. And Aki is a much more like somber, sober character. Denji's like a punk. He can barely read. Like he can't read kanji at all, almost at all. He probably doesn't have over a third grade education. He doesn't know a bunch of basic facts about the world. And again, his whole upbringing is super fucked up. Aki is like a much more kind of by the book guy. He's really stoic and he doesn't like putting up with Denji's shit. I love the scene when they're in an alleyway. Like Aki brings him into the alleyway and he basically just tells him to quit and he tries to beat him up and then he just starts kicking him in the balls. It's awesome. It also sets up a great moment at the end of the season when they kick some guy's balls together. Oh, that's great stuff too. Like Denji starts to slowly kind of morph Aki a little bit. He starts to change Aki and the way that he thinks and the way that he acts a little bit. He kind of loosens him up a bit. They reference it early on in a scene with Makima where she asks him if Denji is making him change his attitude a bit, and he denies it. But you could see like these little ways in which Denji's more positive aspects start to rub off on him, and he allows himself to have a little bit of fun. Like everyone, it's great because everyone gets off on a bad foot with each other. Everyone's like really at odds and they hate each other. There's Power. She's the girl with the devil horns, and she's a fiend. She is a devil who, I think it's like a fiend is a devil who has possessed a human, and like now lives in them. which is different from making a pact, and it's different from what Denji is. But Power, like, is a devil. She's the blood devil. She's just living in some, like, someone else's body. I don't know. Maybe they'll say where. So Denji's, like, whole goal is that he wants to touch boobs and stuff. So after some misadventures with Power, where she tries to kill him and stuff, on their first day out on the job together, they eventually start living together, kind of understanding each other a little bit more. I think Power has a really fun personality, because she basically acts like she's better than everyone all the time, because she's actually like a devil. And she doesn't understand human desires, and she kind of laughs at a lot of human weaknesses. She's very, like, selfish, and she does a lot of things really only for her own gain. Even little things like eating all the food. She's almost, like, spiteful. She does things that are, like, straight up spiteful, like clogging the toilet on purpose when she starts living with Denji and Aki. Okay. So in this whole sequence, after they start living together to, like, increase their camaraderie, Power basically, in an earlier episode when she tried to kill him, she was like, if you get my pet cat back, I'll let you touch my boobs. And Denji does it, and goes through with it, even though she actually uses it as a setup to kill him. He does actually save her cat. And she's like, okay, now you get to touch my boobs. That's the scene with her on the toilet. That's what she's sitting on the toilet so you can touch her boobs. And I love the visual metaphor for him grabbing her. I was like, okay, Chainsaw Man is a fairly mature show. Not just because it has a lot of gore and sex stuff. I mean, mature in, like, the way that it handles a lot of things. Specifically sexuality, which is something that many series, even ones for, like, adults, but especially ones that'll run in a magazine like Shonen Jump, will try to sanitize or skirt around, or are just too uncomfortable to tackle. But I think that Chainsaw Man handles it in a really, like, reasonable way. I was so worried, because there's, like, a cliffhanger of, like, he's gonna touch her boobs? End episode. And I was like, are they going to do the thing where, like, Aki walks in and he's like, what's going on in here? And he's like, oh, and then, like, the comedy music starts playing. And then no. There's, like, a whole scene where he goes to grab her tits. He gets 3 squeezes. He goes through with 3 squeezes. But on the first one, he's like, wait, what? And then he finds out that she pads her breasts. And she actually has a really flat chest and, like, a really androgynous body. and he's like, oh. And he still goes in for, like, 2 more feels, but he's like, yeah, that was cool, I guess. And, like, it's kind of neat, because I can say with full confidence that the twist that Power pads her breasts is actually really fun and interesting. Because if it had just been like, this is awesome, yeah, she's got big old titties, it would have been, like, cool, I guess, as a progression for his character, that he got something that he wanted. But it teaches him way more that it really wasn't all that it was cracked out to be. Like, this happens to a lot of people. Like, sex, especially for men, sex gets built up as this big, awesome thing. And then you have sex for the first time, and a lot of people have bad first experiences with sex. Like, my first time wasn't... It's not as bad as I've heard some other people's, but it was definitely like, oh, okay. Huh. Okay. And it's pointed out to him much later, where, does this happen after he gets almost molested? There's like the next, like, step on the ladder, I guess, is he wants to have a kiss with Himeno, I think is her name. There's a really cool few episodes that they spend, like, trapped in like the same floor of this hotel that I thought was neat. I liked that arc a lot. And Himeno is this like slightly older woman. She's an adult, clearly, and she's kind of creeping. No, I wouldn't say creeping. She's a little friendly. She's friendly. She's like a fucking mess. She's like a train wreck. She has all this emotional baggage. A bunch of her partners. She's had like 5 dead partners. So she's got all this survivorship guilt and stuff. Her devil is that she makes a pact. All the devil hunters have pacts with their own devils that give them their own special powers and stuff. And Himeno's is the ghost devil. So like very subtle. She's literally, it's to control a ghost arm. Like, oh, very, very subtle. She gets to summon the ghost of something that is invisible but has a tangible stranglehold in the real world. Very subtle visualization, but cool. I love that shit. So they have this thing where they do like a work party, and almost everyone gets drunk except for Denji because he's underage. And I think it's actually really funny and cute that he decides only to drink tea and doesn't drink any alcohol. Because he totally could have. No one there suspects that he's actually 16, because who the fuck is that young in the Devil Corps? But Himeno gets super drunk, and she starts kissing on him, and for a second it's awesome, and then she starts throwing up in his mouth. And he spends the rest of the night throwing up like in the bathroom because it was so gross. And he kind of is like tired, and then she like hauls him out back to her apartment, and you're like, what? What's going on? And she, I think, found out that he was 16 during the party. And she like hauls him back to her apartment, throws him in bed, and like gets undressed, and she's about to have sex with him, and then I forget what happens, but something like fucks up and kills the mood. She was gonna like molest him. She was gonna molest him, and I kind of like that. I really enjoy, because she dies very shortly afterwards, and I really enjoy a writer who is able to present you with a character who is so outwardly fucked up, and still just kind of force you to deal with it. And like, yeah, she's like a weird like child groomer. She like kissed up on and almost tried to fuck a teenager as a grown woman. You're just gonna have to deal with that, buddy. It really like doesn't pull punches, and it doesn't shy away from going into directions that I think a lot of people would find weird or objectionable, but not in like a trashy way. Like, again, it's really interesting for Denji's character that his first kiss and that night with all of these like supposedly formative, awesome experiences that, you know, he would imagine they'd be great, had all this dumb, awful shit around it. It's like, yeah, he had his kiss, but then she threw up in his mouth, and then he almost got molested. And like, even if he can't recognize that is like a fucked up situation to lose your virginity in, he could like you as the audience can realize that like, oh, okay, thematically things are not what they seem. They aren't so black and white. It's not just like a universal good that he gets laid. And the show is actually bothering to take things like that seriously. Oh god, what else? Oh, speaking of Himeno and Aki, who were partners previously, I really like the metaphor that they both smoke cigarettes. Because, again, one of the overarching recurring motifs / themes throughout the show is what people are willing to sacrifice to get something. And a cigarette is like a perfect analogy for that. Because it is you are killing yourself in the long run for a momentary relief, a momentary sense of relief. And you then become addicted to that momentary sense of relief in exchange for killing yourself in the long term. And then you look at like Aki, and Aki's got this sword on his back, and he can the sword. He's made a pact. He's made two different pacts because he is so serious about killing the gun devil. He's made two pacts with two different devils, and with the sword, he's made one with the cursed devil. And when he uses the cursed devil's power with the sword, he can kill anything with 3 hits, but using it dramatically shortens his lifespan. I'm not sure by how much. I don't think they state how much, but he uses it one time, and then to not even fully kill the dude that he was trying to kill. And his lifespan is now he has 2 more years to live. And it's like, oh, that's just like his cigarettes. It's just like his cigarettes. So like that stuff's all really cool. I don't know, it's just like it's a show that is I really enjoy the direction of it. I think that the direction of the anime particularly is really cool. One problem that I have with a lot of modern anime, and specifically a lot of shonen, is that stuff's just always noisy. There's just always like baby sensory video going on in the background. I feel like so many, specifically action anime and shonen stuff, are obsessed with like everything having a sound effect and a music cue, and sometimes it feels like I'm watching Johnny Test. And Chainsaw Man's just like got like a lot of quiet. It's got a lot of low-key scenes where characters are just standing around or sitting around, and they talk at like a normal pace. And they have conversations, and there isn't like a sound effect to cue you in on what you're supposed to feel for that line of dialogue. You just have to you just have to interpret it on your own. I appreciate that. I appreciate that a lot. How much like stillness there is. I think it makes the world feel very lived in. I talked about this a while ago when I was talking about what was I talking about? Like I was talking about like 70s Disney movies and how much quiet there is. And it really builds out the atmosphere and makes the world feel very real and large. I feel like the world in Chainsaw Man is really big. Not just because they've set up all these little details and hints and, ooh, who are these people over here? But because when I see the world, it feels like there's a lot of stuff going on outside of where the characters are. And in between the character, like the scenes that I'm watching. And that's really cool. I think it's cool that in the anime, they did a different ending animation for every single episode with a different song. That was neat. Lots of really cool visuals. The action's great. I haven't even mentioned the action. The action is awesome. I think it's really well directed. Some of the fights are very chaotic, but I didn't feel like they were too messy. The motion is very direct and clear. You basically always know what's going on. And even when there's like all these different weird powers going on, and some of them get really abstract. But what's happening is pretty clear. Like if you don't understand something, it's an intentional part of what's going on. The writer / animators don't want you to / storyboarders, I guess. It's meant to be like vague. Or you're not sure what this person's ability is or what they're doing or how they're doing it or what's going on. Super like I love the honestly, I'm just a big stickler as well or I'm a big sucker for crazy anime battles in contemporary settings. I love the fake Karakura Town arc of Bleach. Well, I don't actually, but I love the aspect of it that I do love is watching these magical bitches flying over a modern Japanese city and like shooting big beam attacks and have with their like stupid fuck off samurai swords and pulling out crazy abilities and smashing each other through buildings. I think it's awesome. And I think it's funny that Kubo was like, the town is this is a fake version of the town, so just go wild. There's no one living here. Chainsaw Man's got a lot of that. They fucking smash each other with... Then you smash the guy with a chainsaw. He flies through like 3 buildings. Boom, 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 boom. It's awesome. It hits a potent part of my brain. Is there anything else about the show I'm trying to think of that I noticed or wanted to talk about? I don't think so. I think that's basically it. I think I just really like every aspect of the show, and its writing and its visuals and its animation and its pacing and its music. And it's just kind of like a winner on all fronts for me. The only thing that keeps me from speaking more definitively about it is that the first season feels very much like the first 30 chapters, 40 chapters of a manga that's 300 chapters long or something like that. It definitely feels like, no, I need more. I was annoyed that there weren't more episodes because I wanted more episodes. See, this is why I'm smart. This is why I am the smartest guy in the world for waiting until there's more material, like that Reze arc movie that just came out. And then I can go read it, go watch it or whatever. And then maybe afterwards I'll read the manga or whatever. But yeah, Chainsaw Man, great characters, really interesting writing. Really enjoy the world. I think that on a thematic level, the show is like a slam dunk so far. And all that shit is really interesting. I think the fact that this is primarily, I think most people would call it an action show, and I spent 30 minutes not even talking about the action and just talking about the characters, I think and there's a lot of action in the show. Almost every episode has a lot of action in it. At least 1 or 2 fight scenes. I think is a strong. I think that's actually a very strong. What's the opposite of an indictment? It's very much in its favor. Let's say that. I would highly recommend it if any of that shit sounds cool to you, or if that you would recommend it to someone else, or if you've been watching it, listening to this, and you've already watched the show. I do like it a lot. So I have this problem recently where in between working and doing social stuff and having friends like a loser, a lot of my gaming has just been doing runs of Hades, which has been fun, although I feel like it's taking up a little too much of my gaming time now and I want to play other stuff. So I installed Wizardry, Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord. Specifically, the 2024? Yeah. Remake of the first Wizardry game of the same name. So this is a really cool remake. The original Wizardry is an extremely important game in gaming history. If you care about RPGs at all, namely Japanese RPGs, you owe a lot of that to Wizardry. Many of the tropes, even a lot of fantasy anime or what did they call it? RPG lit or lit RPGs, one of those. A lot of the tropes from that originate from Wizardry and things inspired by Wizardry and Ultima. But Wizardry is a much bigger deal in Japan than it is in outside of Japan, funny enough, because it is an American series. So Wizardry was one of the original big first-person dungeon crawler blobbers. I love blobbers. I love me a good blobber. There's a lot of not good ones or very boring ones, but hey, a good blobber, it hits the spot for me. I feel like the need to explain what a blobber is. I've talked about it before. A blobber is a catch-all. It's an umbrella term for a certain style of RPGs that are first-person, party-based dungeon crawlers. It takes place primarily in first person. You control a whole party of characters as opposed to a single character. And it is usually a lot of the gameplay tends to be delving through various levels of a dungeon. Fighting monsters, getting items and leveling up and getting gold and all that. And maybe going back up to the surface to hang out at the town, rest at the inn, things like that. One of the several ways that we're not so many early video games are just guys in the 70s trying to recreate Dungeons and Dragons, and they do it in many different ways. And I think it's really funny. It's kind of like carcinization, where a lot of different sea creatures just end up evolving to be like crabs, because it just so happens that crabs have a type of build that is really good for surviving underwater. It's kind of like the same idea in games. There's a form of like video game RPG carcinization where there's a couple branches that people went down to try to remake D&D. One of them is roguelikes, where people kept inventing roguelikes without even knowing it, without even knowing there are roguelikes from the damn before Rogue. And the first-person dungeon crawlers, such as Ultima or Wizardry. So the first Wizardry is a big, important game historically, and it spawned a series that no one's ever played in the US except for me, who likes Wizardry 8 mostly. But last year, there was a remake by Digital Eclipse, who fucked up the release of the Street Fighter 30th Anniversary and the Mortal Kombat Classic Collection. Sorry, guys. Why did it release like that? But hey, this one's pretty good. This is a good remake. So it's a little weird to call it a remake, because it is and it's not. So it's actually fairly interesting from a technological perspective. When you play the 2024 remake of Wizardry 1, Proving Grounds of the Mad Overlord, you are technically just playing the original Apple II version of Wizardry with a graphical layer on top of it. They describe it, when you first boot up the game, they give you a disclaimer to give you some extra information about the historical context, some of the optional settings that you can do that they've like modded essentially, that you can turn on and off. And in that, they say that this is running on top of the original Wizardry. And that is so literal that there is a button you can press to toggle on the Apple II view in the corner. There is, from what I understand, basically an Apple II emulation going on that they have then put this modern 3D overlay on top of, and that's what's actually being shown to you. I actually find it really fun to have the Apple II display on, because I just get to, it's just sort of fun to see the comparison in the corner about what's technically happening under the hood. But this is probably what people would recommend if it's your first Wizardry experience, and I'm actually having a lot of fun with it. I have been outspoken about how I find the original Wizardry, the older Wizardry titles, a little bit clunky. I still maintain that for like 6 and 7. 6 and 7. I think that one of the benefits of the remake is responsiveness and visual cohesion. So there is it's honestly, the graphics are a big boon to making Wizardry 1 easier for me to play. And to the point that I feel like I could probably turn off most of the modern features and still have a good time with it. I won't, because I just like the modern quality of life stuff. But it's cool that it's there. And it's not like anything so gameplay warping that it fucks up the original intended experience. There's little things that's like, okay, well, it's not as horrifically punishing as the original. But really, when I talk about visual cohesion, it's two things. Number one is the feedback that you get when you do basically anything. There is a lot left up to the imagination with the original graphics and interface. It's like text, and then you got very simple graphics in the corner. And having just like a visual indication for when an attack hits, and when an attack missed, and when something has happened, and I don't just have to parse everything through the text feedback, which the game still has, which is nice. That improves just like feeling like I understand what's going. That's just like a layer of understanding that there was a barrier to, and I feel is now dropped down. Just because I have a better idea of what is going on in the world. The second thing is about navigating in visual space. So just like there's a lot to be left to up to imagination in terms of like the combat and stuff like that, navigating the dungeon in like old wireframe graphics can be very challenging for some people. If you are not good at... So some people are straight up map blind. They cannot map out, like keep a consistent map of an area in a video game to save their lives. And that's just, some people are just bad at it. It's probably like dyslexia or something. But it's so inconsequential that no one's bothered to like come up with a diagnosis for it. Maybe I should do that. Someone in college, someone who's doing a psychology course in college, go for your like thesis project, go see if you can get a new thing like condition diagnosed where people are just map blind and have trouble navigating in virtual spaces. And see if it's actually consistent. That would be a fun experiment. I think that I'm pretty good at keeping a mental map in my head. But some of the old wireframe games really test that. Because everything just looks the same. There are almost no landmarks. Sometimes when you're just pressing forward to go ahead, you're like, wait, how many times have I... Like, you just lose track of how far you've been or what's going on, and everything just blurs together. And having 3D visuals so that I know when I am advancing and how far, and I can see the end of the hallway and it's very clear, and when I make a turn, and what the room looks like, and when I can see they've added some little details around the world to make things... Still, to be fair, a lot of the world is still fairly repetitive. A lot of the dungeon is fairly repetitive, but they've added little things, little landmarks. So like, I spend a lot of time in Wizardry 1 farming on the first floor to get my characters up a few levels before I start going deeper. And finding my way, it's at a certain point, it wasn't about surviving. It was about, fuck, how do I get out again? Because even being relatively familiar with the layout, which is consistent, there's still stuff that surprises me. There is still stuff that's like, wait, have I been here before? And also, one of the new quality of life features is a map. They call it the ambient map. The map does not carry over between dungeon runs. You leave, all the map info's gone. It does not stick around. And also, there are there's a room in the first floor where you walk in and the door behind you vanishes. And there's like 8 doors scattered around the room or something like that. Yeah, I think there's 8. And if you go through the one directly ahead, it takes you back to where you entered the room from. And the map gets really wacky when you do that. It literally starts like copying and pasting segments of the map over to where it's not like, oh, I go through the one door and then my party just appears on the map at the bottom of the room again. No. It's like you walked through that door and this is a new room. That's like how the map interprets it. Like it can get funky. But there's just little things like, okay, that's where the skeletons are. That's like the way out. And you can kind of make little landmarks for yourself as you go in. I wish that, like, honestly, as a role-playing game, you would have some kind of ability. They introduced this later with the cartography skill. I don't know if that was in 5 or 6 first. I know it's in 6. But the cartography skill, which is literally, you can make a map of where you've been more easily. Not in Wiz 1. Not in Wiz 1. But this is... I think if you go into Wizardry 1 with a couple things in mind, you'll have a good time. Number one is that the game is not afraid to fuck with you and to put you in weird situations and kill you. The game is not afraid to just kill you. It's old school. And also, it's being old school means that the gameplay is fairly simple. I think that it's best enjoyed when you're like, okay, this is a game that's going to be about grinding through a couple floors of a dungeon and occasionally fighting some bosses. And if you go in with those expectations, honestly, I think it's really fun. I think it's solid and it holds up pretty well. Nowadays, we would consider this a very basic, like, I don't know, student project type of thing. Or like really small scale, like, studio type of thing. But being a foundational pillar of the genre, I think it really holds up as having pretty solid gameplay, pretty solid dungeon design, and a lot of cool little touches and flares and ideas. You can tell that these were people who played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, and they would put in, like, what if there was a room that was like this? What if you went down here? What if there was a room where everything was dark and it was so dark you couldn't find anything, but you could find a door and the door opened to a wizard and the wizard was like, fuck off, and then teleported you back up to the surface. Like, that happened to me today. Yeah, and if you don't assume, it's not going to be nice. It's not going to be nice in the way where you can just, oh yeah, I can just sustain through, like, I can go down 3 floors. Like, no, you're going to spend a little bit farming levels on the first floor, and then you're going to progress to the second one, and you're going to slowly but surely start delving deeper and deeper into the dungeon as your characters get stronger. They might die, and when they die, you have to, like, pay money. You have to bring them all the way back. You have to walk up to the surface again, which makes delving deeper dangerous. Because not only are the enemies going to be stronger, but if someone dies, you've got to haul ass all the way back up. So it really rewards conservative play and being really safe. There's a heavy aspect of resource management and knowing when to tap out. I would say that having some idea of the basic rules of Wizardry and kind of some of the tropes of the series and how it's because it's honestly very consistent from entry to entry. I think that definitely gives you a leg up. The whole idea of you've got 6 party members, 3 frontline and 3 backline, at least in this game. And honestly, the setup that's been working for me is 3 frontline fighters. Fuck it. 3 frontline fighters. They are the hardiest class in the game. And then in the back line, I have a priest for healing. I have a bishop for bishops can do a lot of stuff. I also just like bishops in Wizardry. And I have a thief for trap disarming. And they have actually added, I think this is cool, one of the things in the remake that they've added. Again, all this is optional. You can toggle all the new things off if you want. But one of the new things is thieves now get an ability that the hide ability from later iterations, which I think makes them a lot more useful in combat. The main purpose of thieves, like the most useful thing that they have going for them, is that they can easily and safely inspect and disarm traps or trapped chests, which is a big deal. And being able to consistently get chests, which a lot of enemies guard, gives you a big advantage in terms of gold. Gold is, after a certain point, not that hard to come by, even in the early game. So you can hide. If you successfully hide, the thief can then do an ambush attack. So it's like a big, strong attack that takes a turn of setup. But it's cool. It gives them like a unique gameplay thing in combat. And that's the setup that's been working for me. You can, and sometimes are, expected to roll or build more powerful characters. There are options for doing the original classic, just RNG, roll all your stats. Or you can do a slightly more modern thing of individually assigning stat points and all that. But yeah, it's honestly a lot of fun. The graphical touches are the new graphics are great. I think that they help with a lot of readability issues that the original game might have had. It's got an old school sensibility, but the gameplay is really solid. The dungeon design is fun, and I've just been having a really good time with it. I would absolutely recommend it. It's a great remake. It's a great remake. And with that, I'm going to draw this to a close. If you've been listening this far, thank you for listening to me ramble. If you have a question, feel free to leave it down in the comments below, but please phrase it in the form of a question, and I will definitely get to it next time. I am slowly working on the next video. I think it's going to be kind of a longer one. I kind of want to re-record the voiceover because I didn't like the original one, but yeah, everything else is going smoothly. If you're in the San Jose area, maybe you could head to UMakeCon this weekend and catch my panel about Tetris. Yeah. Bye.